Now, iPhone subsidies sometimes backfire. It's Anton Troyanovsky's story, but he can't be with us, so Spencer Ante is going to tell us all about it.
He's in Barcelona with Amir.
It's very
eating
nice.
tapas,
You must have upset somebody, which is why you're not in Barcelona now. So you have to be here with me. Tell us about this. Subsidies have been a great way to sort of get expensive devices in the hands of people who really can't afford them through contracts, right? You buy a $600 phone, but actually you pay $200 and you're locked in for 2 years. That isn't the way it is everywhere, especially in Southern Europe. Explain why.
The subsidy model is something that the U.S. citizens have become accustomed to. It's very popular in the U.S. It's popular in some parts of Europe, especially Northern Europe. And what this story shows is that in other parts of the world, especially Southern Europe, where there's depressed economies, they basically don't use subsidies that much. And what that means is you don't have to sign up for a 2-year contract, but you also don't get your phone. You have to pay for the phone. You have to pay like the whole cost of the phone.
And I want to give some figures on this because and pay attention to these figures because they're really shocking. High profile iPhone 4S, only 5% of smartphones sold in Greece. That was the iPhone 4S, and only 9% of those in Portugal were iPhones.
Right.
Listen, let me get that right again. Only 5% of the smartphones sold in Greece and 9% of those sold in Portugal were iPhones. Those are such small numbers compared to what we expect here in the US.
Coming off of this commentary on Google, Android is actually the leading smartphone maker in those countries because the Android phones are much cheaper than the iPhone.
And they don't need a subsidy.
Well, even without the subsidy, they're much cheaper. So the top of the line Android phones are going, or the middle range and the low end, you can get an Android phone for as cheap as like $100. In some of these places.
And no subsidy, no contract locked in. So if you lose your job, you can just stop.
Android is free. That's part of it. Google gives it away for free, so the device makers don't have to pay for the operating system. And it's not sort of a premium type device like all across the world. Like the iPhone is very much a premium type device with premium margins.
But okay, Greece and Portugal's problems notwithstanding, they are first world economies, and presumably at some point in the future they will rebound into be rich countries once again. This would seem to me to be a problem for Apple. How are they going to address
It's not a huge problem right now. Okay, they sold 37 million iPhones last quarter.
It's not a huge problem, but if you're the country manager for Greece and Portugal, and you're up there, going to the annual meeting, and the boss is saying, "What's this?" That's a problem for them.
It's not a big problem because so far the subsidies are still in use in sort of the biggest, most lucrative markets, which includes the U.S. and lots of Western Europe and some parts of China. The big question for Apple going forward is, will the subsidy model disappear in some of these other markets where it's really benefited Apple? And so far there's not a lot of signs that that's going to happen, but this is sort of very early days still for this model, and we'll just have to watch and see it. But for now, it's sort of a little bit of a problem for Apple, and they seem to be selling so many phones in other parts of the world that it hasn't hurt them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually believe it's bad news because when you let another brand basically take over while you get
Apple does have a low-end play with the 3GS. They still keep the 3GS on the market, but even the 3GS costs in the story we said it costs $500 without a subsidy, which is a considerable amount of money for someone who doesn't have a job.
Oh yeah, and that's a lot of people in Greece. Anyway, we'll leave it there. More on that story on WSJ.com by Anton Troyanovsky.